we regard states as the absolute normal building block of the global order. Yeah, this is one of the interesting things is, where do states come from? States emerge from the most successful, the most far-sighted of gangsters and bandits.
Op de NAVO-top in Den Haag, waar wereldleiders spraken over het beschermen van hun burgers, stelde één historicus een ongemakkelijke vraag. Wat is eigenlijk het verschil tussen de macht van de staat en georganiseerde misdaad?
De NAVO-top in Den Haag is officieel van start. In de loop van de dag komen de regeringsleiders en staatshoofden...
Mark Galeotti is Rusland-expert en kenner van de georganiseerde misdaad. Hij werd uitgenodigd in Den Haag om te spreken over de Russische dreiging.
One of the key things at these meetings is not what happens on the platform. It's in all the little side conversations that take place over coffee, over a beer or whatever.
Galeotti zegt dat machtsstructuren volgens dezelfde principes werken. Van drugskartels tot diplomatieke toppen. Volgens hem is iedere staat begonnen als bandietennest.
There are two sorts of bandits. There are stationary and roaming bandits. And roaming bandits come into town, steal everything they can, kill anyone who gets in their way, leave behind ruins, and then move on. Stationary bandits take over. They will steal just enough to be able to enjoy the fruits of that, but they understand that if you steal everything and kill everyone, you've got nothing to steal from tomorrow. So actually, they realize that you need to nurture the community if you're going to be able to exploit more from it. Well, which is essentially the basis of a modern state. So anyway, these stationary bandits, if they're successful, if they last long enough, they begin to become, back in pre-modern, medieval, but also, if you look at some parts of the world, even today, they become the basis for states. So in some ways, states are just the most successful, the most intelligent, and the most legitimated of gangsters. When you look at failed states, often you have to see, well, who emerges to take them over, to reshape them? It's often the sort of insurgent gangster, bandit, warlord figure who basically captures or rebuilds a state. One can look at Akira Kurosawa's extraordinary film, Seven Samurai, as an example of how organized crime can fill a vacuum when there is no working state, when people cannot turn to the state for the most crucial thing, which is protection, then they will look somewhere else. And here you have, at a time in medieval Japan, where a village is being plundered by heedless bandits. And that is, again, one of the most fundamental dynamics of state building throughout the ages, is that societies need protection, and they will look for it. In effect, there is a market. Modern states are good at doing this, but particularly in pre-modern times, when states weren't, then someone else will fill that gap.
And how has this changed from, for example, the time of the samurai?
In many ways, what happens is, states become more and more settled over time. And states come to understand that they need to protect their own populations because they depend on the population to continue working and to pay tax. And tax is what a state gets to spend on whatever it wants, whether it's a palace for the king, whether it's an army and a navy, or whether it's modern social services. States nowadays, they have so much that they want to spend money on, which means that they need a lot of tax, which means that they have to control their societies, which also means they have to protect them.
Have moral values or justice ever been the basis of forming of states?
I mean, this is terrible because it makes me look like an absolutely amoral and cynical sort of judge of human character. But no, I mean, I think morality is what comes up later to justify how you act. Initially, states on the whole were very raw, crude, primal beasts. You obey me because I can deploy force to, if need be, to punish you for not doing so. But over time, things change. And gangsters also often change. I mean, this is the funny thing. That 20-year-old thug who is happy to terrorize his local community, by the time he's 40 or 50, he wants to be seen as a pillar of the community. And he will take some of his profits and he will build a church, he will give money to local community charities. You know, we had Latin American drug cartels building football stadiums. We have Japanese Yakuza providing earthquake relief. You know, they want that place, that legitimacy. And that in a way forces them to act in ways that we call more moral.
Aid packages being delivered in Mexico's second largest city, Guadalajara. The pictures on the boxes are of famed drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. The boxes contain oil, sugar, rice and other essential items.
In some ways, what really distinguishes the state is precisely that it has built up over time a sense of legitimacy. And the point about legitimacy is that implies a two-way relationship. It's not just what you owe to the people above you in the system. It's also expectations of society on the people who run them, which is something that emerges over time. And this is why, you know, ultimately, although one can see great similarities between the successful gang and the state, ultimately states are something different because they've made that final jump. And frankly, most states are, I should say. I mean, it's hard to say that North Korea is not really one large organised crime gang. But most states have made that jump and have accepted that the rules apply to them just as they do to all the people on the ground.
On the souls of my grandchildren, that I will not be the one to break the peace we've made here today.
But I'm absolutely confident that together, with the leaders in this room tonight, we will emerge stronger and make our countries and the world safer.
The images of all these heads of states coming together, it kind of reminded me of the scene of The Godfather, where all the heads of the families come together and talk about how to deal with the problems that they face. Are there some similarities?
Yes, I mean, there's a limit to how far I don't want to parallel NATO leaders with mafia godfathers, but there are parallels in the way that the underworld tends to mirror the upper world. In other words, what happens in the legitimate world that we occupy actually also tends to be replicated. And we've seen there's situations in which, yes, there is no gangster equivalent of NATO, but on the other hand, there are times in which different criminal gangs, even different criminals from different countries will get together and agree and discuss things.
You're saying the underworld mirrors the real world, but is it also the case that it happens the other way around? Especially with a person like Putin, but also Trump, who sometimes it seems like he's using tactics from these people.
Well, with Trump, it's difficult. I mean, there is so much mythology about Trump, you know, the degree to which he's a pawn of the gangsters, he's a pawn of Putin, whatever else, which I think one has to accept most of this is just wild speculation. It's more that from Trump's point of view, international law doesn't really exist. Or it exists only insofar as he can use it to his own ends. So what he's actually trying to do is, I hesitate to say, make America a gangster state, but certainly pull America out of the constraints of international law. Because when you're powerful, when you're rich, then actually you don't need law to protect you. Law is there ultimately to protect the weak. And from his point of view, well, America is not weak. So why should America accept a law-based state?
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now.
We'll have to work out some deal with it, because I do like the "Oh Canada," right? But we're gonna see about that. We're looking at Greenland. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and I think we're gonna get it. One way or the other, we're gonna get it. And we have to take back the Panama Canal.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
You've got to understand that for Trump, just like for Putin, the world is divided into two sorts of countries. There are a few that really matter. There are a few that, in effect, shape the world policies. And all the other countries are really there to be told what to do. And the only question is, whose sphere of influence are they in? I mean, this is one of the reasons why clearly Trump has for so long been so uninterested, frankly, in supporting Ukraine. Because he, as far as he's concerned, of course, Ukraine is part of Russia's sphere of influence.
NATO was busted until I came along. I said, everybody's going to pay. And one of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
So I think it's more than anything else. It's actually this kind of worldview, which, yes, has a certain kind of godfatherish element, is that, you know, you have to talk to other godfathers. You have to talk to other sort of powerful figures, because it's you and them who, between them, are going to carve up the world. The Britons, the Netherlands, the Germanys of this world, they're not serious players. They just, the only question is, they have to wait and find out who gets to tell them what to do.
President Trump, dear Donald, you made this change possible. Your leadership on this has already produced $1 trillion in extra spending from European allies since 2016. And the decisions today will produce trillions more for our common defense to make us stronger and fairer by equalizing spending between America and America's allies.
The rise of capitalism was one of the great sort of changing points for upper world and underworld alike. When we shifted increasingly to moneyed economies rather than barter economies, we created whole new worlds of crime. Whether it's in terms of counterfeiting coins, whether it's in terms of the financial scams that happened, and capitalism also meant more powerful states. States that increasingly needed to raise taxes, raise armies and such like. And that meant that the old type of organised crime, based as it was on basically the bandit gang, got squeezed out, and the criminals had to get smarter. But then we have the globalisation, you know, which again started a long time. You know, we think of it as something very modern, but obviously, you know, the time of empires and the time of trade has been around for centuries. But you know, when we have true globalisation, cheap and easy travel completely changed it, because it actually meant that we were now part of global economies and global criminal economies. And so if we're looking at, for example, the drug traffickers, these are not deep-thinking global entrepreneurs. They are unpleasant gangster thugs. They know they don't know how to move money around the world and launder it and so forth, so they hire the services. Again, this is part of the modern capitalist world, outsourcing. The global economy has not only created new global opportunities for them, but also created a market for the skills that they feel they need.
What is the future of organized crime?
The key question is this. Are we, at the moment, facing one of these kind of crunch times for the existing global order? You know, we're seeing populism on the rise within the democratic countries. We're seeing climate change potentially reshape not just the economies of the world, but also where people live and where people want to live. We are seeing, again, a sort of a renewed challenge as China rises and Russia continues to press. All of these, they may seem very distant from the world of the sort of local street corner thug, but they all have an impact, because nowadays all organised crime is global. It operates within global economies. And if we find that kind of legitimate society is heading into a period of crisis, that will inevitably empower organised crime. If we take, for example, the current war raging in Ukraine, it's led to a massive proliferation of illegal weapons on both sides of the battle lines. Now, we're not really seeing them come out into the rest of the world yet, but that's because the war is raging. And on the whole, I mean, we saw this also with the wars in Yugoslavia in the 1990s, that while the war is raging, people hold on to their guns because they never know if they could, if they're going to need them, basically. But when peace comes, suddenly you have a massive outflow of not just guns, but also war-scarred individuals who can't really readapt back to normal society. Ending that war is suddenly going to free up all kinds of dangerous phenomena, whether it's the trafficking of weapons from Ukraine or from Russia, whether it's the emergence of gangs which will hire war-scarred ex-soldiers to be their thugs and their gunmen, or whether it's just simply the fact of the huge amounts of money that will pour into reconstructing Ukraine are going to be a huge bonanza for organised crime gangs.
They're going up to 5% from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%.
When you became president in 2016, 2017, you forced Europeans and Canadians to pay more. At this moment, the result of that phase is 1 trillion extra aggregate defense spending by the Canadians and the Europeans. Today, we will decide to go to 5%. We have to keep ourselves safe from our adversaries, but also because it is fair to equalize with the United States.
It's a great victory for everybody, I think, and we will be equalized very shortly, and that's the way it has to be. And it's going to be a lot of money too, a lot of defense.
I think the point is we have to realize that whenever you have large transfers of money, it's going to create two particular opportunities for the gangsters. One is to try and invest in and see how much essentially they can embezzle from the money being spent. But the other opportunity, and the one that frankly worries me much more, is that money has to come from somewhere. There is no magic money source that will suddenly sort of cover this. It's going to mean higher taxes. The more you tax things, the more you create possibilities for illegal markets. It may mean higher national debt, but it almost certainly will mean less money for public services. Every euro you spend on building a drone is a euro that isn't going to be spent providing educational opportunities for some 16-year-old, or providing some kind of uplift for a community that feels already marginalised. My big worry is precisely that actually this will create the kind of tensions, the kind of dissatisfactions, the kind of massive gaps between what people expect and what they're actually getting that all helps organised crime. I mean, although I do understand the importance of spending on security at a time when the world has become a more dangerous place, again, we just need to take it that next step and think, well, the measures we're going to have to take in order to afford that, how far are they going to actually undermine legitimate society, the cohesion of communities, precisely the kind of things which help us fight organised crime?